Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. And as you saw there, the montage of photos, we recap Black Press Week, the state of the Black press, and our visit to the White House for Black Press Week. Also, tomorrow is D-Day. At least that's what many are anticipating as former President Donald Trump appears headed to award arrest in New York. We'll tell you his reaction and the Manhattan DA's response over the weekend to what seems like Trump's attempt to spark another insurrection or at least protest because of his pending arrest in New York. And meanwhile, in Georgia, we just learned this morning that Atlanta DA Fannie Willis is moving along her case against Trump, and charges there could include racketeering and conspiracy. And one of the first Black towns to incorporate after the Civil War is expected to be sold off to developers. We will discuss, of course, with the gangsters, Barrington Salmon and Austin Cooper. Good morning, guys.
Morning, my brothers. How are you?
Barrington's quiet on us because he's on mute. He's always doing something wrong, Austin.
Stacey, behave,
There he is.
behave yourself. It's funny because you talk about us being gangsters. The biggest goddamn gangster is Donald Trump. The Trump criminal organization, the Trump criminal, what used to be a political party.
Well, you're a different kind of gangster.
All of them are gangsters.
You're a different kind of gangster. You and Austin.
Oh, okay.
Can't take Austin anywhere, but anywhere, by the way, anywhere.
Here we go.
Austin's got all types of competition for his love life. We won't even we won't get too much into that. But before we get into it, I saw something this morning I had not seen. I've mentioned just briefly pre-show. The New York Times ran this story, and Barrington, this is more for you than anybody in my mind, only because you continue to refer to the GOP as the party formerly known as the Republican Party, but you also have mentioned numerous times that these guys, using Roe v. Wade as an example, they started plotting the demise of Roe v. Wade, 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And we all remember when Iran, or many of us, I should say, remember when Iran took the American hostages during the Carter presidency. We know President Carter is in hospice. President Biden just announced last week that he's going to deliver the eulogy when President Carter ultimately dies. But we also got to see, based on this in-depth piece from the New York Times, what behind the scenes was going on that prolonged their stay. You remember early in the hostage crisis, right? Muhammad Ali went over to Iran against the administration's permission or advice or whatever. They didn't want him traveling. They didn't want anybody traveling to Iran. They had the hostages. It was 252 at first, I believe, or something like that.
Correct.
And Ali went over there and got them to free all of the hostages of color, and also many of the women hostages. Right? He came. I remember so well when he met with the Ayatollah.
Mhm.
And brought them home, but there were still 52 remaining, right?
52, yep.
Yeah.
And this guy, Ben Barnes, is now telling the story. He's a political mentor, who his political mentor was John B. Connolly Jr. Many remember Connolly, who was considered a titan of American politics and the former Texas governor. Well, they took him first. Nancy Reagan had some words with him, had a meeting with him back in the summer of '79, and sent him to all of these different Middle Eastern countries. And the mission was to stop Iran from releasing the hostages before Reagan was elected, before the election.
Yeah.
And on behalf of Reagan. So Reagan, they kept saying, Reagan will give you a better deal. So we talk a lot about also how Russia influenced Donald Trump so much and influenced the election in 2016. Iran was influencing, or at least through the means of the Texas politicians, the powerful Texas politicians, Republicans, they kept those people there a whole lot longer than what they would have been there for.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm
This
not. I'm
that's
not. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Um, One of the things that I lament is that when you compare Democrats to Republicans, it's like a boy fighting against a man, because the Democrats just seem unwilling or unable to do even the what I consider to be the most important things to properly rebut the things that Republicans are doing. Um, and I've written stories about it. I've talked to consultants and those folks, and the consensus always is you have what used to be a political party that is completely that has completely embraced the idea of power at all costs,
Mhm.
and they're willing to be as ruthless and take as many lives, destroy as many lives as they need to stay in power. And
Well,
and if you look, and I mean, what we're seeing is the metastasization of the cancer in what used to be the Republican Party, and now the pus and all of the bodily fluids are coming out in the form of the Matt Gateses, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and of course Donald Trump, Orange Jesus.
so Austin, here's what I wonder. We remember also that President Carter sent a rescue mission. They had planned this out. Some troops were to go into Iran. They through intelligence found out exactly the location where the hostages were being held.
Okay.
Black Hawks were sent, and somehow Iran got wind of it, knew about the plan. And if you remember, the planes went down over in near Tehran, and we lost. There was loss of lives
Yeah, I
among the
think 6 or 7
American troops.
servicemen were
6 or 7
lost when
servicemen, right?
the
So I
yeah, yeah,
wonder,
and they
Austin, that is what Barnes is now admitting to. I wonder if it extends back to that, in which they would have given Iran that intelligence.
I would not
I know it's speculation
be
at this point, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I would not be surprised. I was in I was a sophomore in college in North Carolina during the Iranian crisis. And I remember reading about the failed rescue mission, and they put it on, helicopters
Yeah,
getting caught up in some type of a major sandstorm. I mean, even as a kid, 17 years old, I was always suspicious of that. I
yeah,
remember there was fear and there's always fear in both political campaigns a month out before the election during October. It's called the October surprise. And there was great fear because the poll numbers were close, despite all of the challenges that Jimmy Carter was having with the
yeah. Ultimately, it was a
with the
landslide, though.
economy, but ultimately, last exactly, exactly.
yeah.
But the fact that it was clearly planned, it was clearly planned. I believe
Carter.
and
I'm
this
sorry,
goes
Austin.
back to no, this goes back to what my brother Barrington was saying or alluding to, that January 6th is not the first time that we have seen senior members of the Republican Party basically being traitors to their own country. John Connolly was the governor of Texas. Some may recall a very conservative governor of Texas in the 60s. Some may recall that he was in the in the motorcade with President Kennedy. In fact, one of the shots
Yep.
that hit the president hit John Connolly. And during the first term of the Nixon administration, as a thank you, it appears he was his first secretary of the Treasury.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that picture right there, whoever was around to see that, who could forget that? I'll never. I wasn't as old as Austin. I was I was in the sixth grade, I believe, or the fifth
Yeah,
grade
yeah.
when it happened. And I just remember those folks climbing that embassy wall
Yeah.
in Iran, and taking those hostages. And I was like, oh my God, they're gonna kill these folks. They're gonna kill
And,
these
and
Americans.
Stacey and Barrington, you know who also made a name for himself? He was well known, but really made a national name for himself during these 444 days. Ted Koppel
Ted
with Nightline.
Koppel,
That's when
abs-
Nightline started. And every
yes,
night, day 3, day 4, and that
yep.
fed into the American psyche of Jimmy Carter being a
Really,
failure or not doing enough.
And
yeah, yeah,
And
Carter
yet
was
those
always
hostages out.
criticized. Carter was criticized during his president. He was the president who hated war, right? And so
Yep.
even sending those Black Hawks and into Iran was something that was supposed to be. He was hoping, and the military uh, had hoped that it would be something that they could go in, basically load without too much of an incident, put it that way.
yeah,
Exactly.
But you got to understand, which I'm sure they understood back then, because he negotiated the historic peace accord between Egypt and Israel at the time, if you
Yep.
remember, at Camp
Yep.
David. And you got to understand that America was still reeling when he took office in 1976, still reeling from Vietnam, a war that to this day people don't even know why they were there.
Yep. Exactly.
They
and
don't know why they were there.
remember, they lost more than 57,000 military
Americans. That's right.
American military personnel.
Yeah. And Carter, what, and so, as Mike V put notes, Carter was a veteran himself, so he had firsthand understanding of what war did and does.
Yeah, but
And
Absolutely.
he had no understanding of the duplicity and the traitorous nature of what
of
used
the
to be the
right,
Republican Party.
which also goes to show, right? We think about today where it's clearly, I guess they did a more of a little better job back then of hiding that it was all about power, but today it's clearly all about power. It's about control. As you know, Barrington with the former Republican Party, but it's so outwardly evil now,
Yeah,
right, and hostile.
yeah,
Even Corinne spoke when we went to the White House the other day. Corinne spoke of the outward, the hostility that it is today.
yeah. I mean, it's a case study in racism, authoritarianism, fascism, because for all of us who may have sat down at different points and wondered what it was like to be in the middle of the civil rights movement, Montgomery bus boycott, and all of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 1950s and 60s in 2023, because we're dealing with the same dirty racist mindset that they feel like whatever it takes to destroy, to marginalize, and to erase Black and brown people, they're doing it. I mean, I was watching the news yesterday, and I just keep on shaking my head, because I have women friends who are Republican, and I'm saying, do you see what the hell that these SOBs are doing to women around the abortion issue? And they're trying to give me all types of excuses about, well, I don't support that, but I don't hear you all saying nothing.
I think
silence is support.
Yeah,
silence is support.
Silence is complicity.
Well, let me ask you this though.
They still support them. They still vote for them.
I think the abortion issue though is a tricky one, because I don't think that's an issue that as a voting block, Black people really care about, as far as support anyway. I think Black people have a problem with the abortion issue, but
we're
not
a monolith. We're not a monolith, Stacey.
No, we're not. I think I said the voting block.
The problem that we have, I think, is that a lot of times we keep on assuming that that issues that affect Black people, all of them. One of the things that I'm understanding, because I always remind people that I'm not African American. I wasn't born here. I'm an immigrant from somewhere else. But the fact is, they said that.
Who is not an immigrant in this country?
Well, yeah, but I'm a recent immigrant. My folks came here in the 60s, 70s. But the thing that's interesting is that I always hear analysts saying that African Americans generally are much more conservative than the media gives them credit for. So if the Republicans weren't as racist as they are, they could have developed programs that would have brought significant numbers of African Americans into the GOP.
Mhm.
But Kevin Phillips and Richard Nixon in 67, 68 with the Southern Strategy.
Mhm.
That's well Johnson signing the Voting Rights and Civil Rights Act cemented white racists, the
Exactly.
overt white racists going to the Republican Party in 1965.
Mhm.
And then the Southern Strategy was the racialization of voting by Nixon, and Kevin Phillips to ensure that they would always have these white people voting for what used to be the Republican
Let
Party.
me, Austin, let me present to you what Mark Campbell is writing in. He says both sides have agendas. Why is it that Republicans are seen as the bad side? I believe the Dems are just as guilty of unspeakable acts. Bottom line is there's no way out if there's no unity. Division hurts everyone.
I agree. I agree. I would argue with Brother Mark. I just don't believe that overall, and we've had this conversation on the show before. Um, I don't think that either party, Democrat or Republican, have always shown the best interests of African Americans. I think I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I think that the Democratic Party often takes the black vote for granted. We talked about the challenges to Vice President Harris being on the ticket on the show last week or
Hmm.
2 weeks ago. And at the end of the day, to me, it boils down to which of these two evils is going to better represent your interests.
Yeah, and
And
they
voting and trying to work within and outside to one day hopefully achieve what we've been denied for so long.
But
Yeah, David Youngblood says because Democrats are not searching for yesteryear with policies that are intended to harm African Americans. And I think there's the bottom line. We're going to get to in a moment um, Donald Trump, the situation there, and of course Black Press Week. But Barrington, I wanted to call attention to this news item this morning too. In Florida, Eatonville, Florida, one of the first Black towns to incorporate following the Civil War, is also one of the few to have survived, but barely. Now 100 acres of land in Eatonville, which is near Orlando, is expected to be sold off to developers, a move being fought by local activists seeking to preserve their community.
Yeah.
They're saying that this is sacred land. So, but Barrington, once again, land and Black people.
yeah, we've talked about this before because if you talk to any revolutionary, any freedom fighter, Amilcar Cabral, Samora Machel, Nelson Mandela, it all comes down to land. And if when you listen to the Stokely Carmichaels and Fred Hamptons and stuff, land is an important issue. The Nation of Islam has always said that we as Black people can't have any real rootedness in this country unless we have a geographical area to call our own. So one of the things that that has been happening, and a lot of times it happens away from the microscope, is the constant and steady theft of Black land by developers, by governments, and all these other entities. Hilton Head in South Carolina, the
Mhm.
tourist area, Black people used to own all that, and they stole all that stuff by with excessive tax burdens, outright theft, or driving people off the land. So this is an issue that we've been dealing with, and I don't know that we have ever really been able to counter it in ways that benefit us holding on to the land. So this is just another step in the process, because when we talked about the Black farmers, they at the turn of the last century, black farmers had like 15 million acres of land,
Mm-hmm.
which the U.S. Department of Agriculture, their regional agents, and the Klan and all of these other people in different ways stole,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
And
now it's about 1.2 million acres left that's in black hands.
it's amazing. Amazing.
Eatonville was founded in 1887 by a man named Joe Clark. After the end of the Civil War, formerly enslaved African Americans flocked to Central Florida to work, and white property owners refused to sell them land until Clark convinced two white Northerners with homes in the area, Lewis Lawrence and Josiah Eaton, to make available plots they could buy in what became Eatonville, Florida, one of the first black towns to incorporate.
And here's where I wish that Florida has a whole host, a lot of black millionaires in
Mhm.
Florida. There are a lot of black millionaires all across the country. I wish that at least one of them, when they read the story, would say, "I'm going to bail that city out."
Mhm.
There are 2,182. I was just looking up 2,832, I believe, citizens who live there. To Barrington's point, this is part of our collective generational wealth, and
Mhm.
until we step up, as Brother Malcolm and others taught, and take ownership, this is always going to happen. It doesn't even have to be us. This is just a couple of miles from Disney.
It's a couple miles.
How many African Americans, how many blacks over the years, every year, buy tickets to Disney?
Yeah.
And those tickets ain't cheap. I haven't been
Oh
there in a while,
God.
but those tickets ain't cheap at all. I mean, it's not like, you go with a whole family, it could be $1,000, just over a couple of days between the tickets and all the rides and the meals, etc. Well
Mhm.
over 1,000. So why can't Disney, as part of their corporate social responsibility
Yeah.
initiative,
Paris Brown says
invest?
she lived down there, and she says this is prime land off a major thoroughfare.
Yeah. But the thing,
And
It's all about the dollar. It's all about the dollar.
for
Austin,
that,
Austin's right.
Perry says that land has been and still is the fundamental basis of all wealth. That is why the Chinese is economically colonizing African countries. They need land to plant food for their people.
Yeah. But the thing that we have to always be thinking about is the fact that there are lots of millionaires in Florida, Austin. That doesn't mean anything, because
Yeah,
it depends on their mindset. It depends on their consciousness,
their awareness.
their
Absolutely.
awareness.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that's always interesting to me is, as someone who I always am trying to study the leverage and leverages that are against people who have money. And it's I could be right, I could be wrong, but a lot of times it just feels to me that these folks that have money, they're doing every goddamn thing that they can do to hang on to whatever money they have. So they're not going to do anything about.
Oh, rich people only want to get richer.
Yeah,
It's never enough.
they're not going to do any. Like, I imagine that if some black millionaires came forward to do this, they'd be thinking about what type of repercussions are gonna occur if I do this. Am I willing to do this? Will I lose my money? And that type of thing. So,
Well, you
Well, that
mentioned.
goes back to the mindset of which I know you're saying, Barrington, of being committed to your
Hmm.
people.
yeah,
During the 50s and 60s, it was dangerous to vote. You could lose your life, you could lose your job, you could lose everything.
yeah,
But thankfully, we can vote today because people were committed to our race of people. And it's
Well,
just unfortunate, to your point, that so many of us today,
yeah.
especially those in power with money, are not. It's always, what are we going to get out of it, other than, as opposed to, what will this mean for the community as a whole and
yeah,
our history as a people?
You mentioned about being this Eatonville and being close to Disney and what it could mean for the residents. Claudette Perry mentions that the land her father used to own is now part of Busch Gardens. So imagine, look at that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
Wow,
an
wow,
example. And then
wow.
Bobby Henry says if DeSantis has his way, Eatonville will be a figment of our imagination. And Power 96 says to make it even worse, the company that is buying the land sent a black man to explain to the residents
Of course.
that the who, what, when, and where. Sometimes we are our own worst enemies. And so
And he was
true.
honored to do it. He was proud to do it.
Proud to do. And
But-
speaking of,
But you
go
know,
ahead, Barrington.
I was just thinking that if the residents of Eatonville fight against it and say they're not going to do it, they can use eminent domain and take the land anyway.
Oh yeah. Well, we saw that just unfold. That situation in Southern California with Bruce Beach.
Yeah,
That's how they took that land, but they finally got it back, and good for them. It's the first time that we can remember that ever happening.
They sold it back to the city, Stacy.
That not to the same city. They made that clear. They were on the program. They made that clear.
What did they say?
They sold it not to that city. They sold it to Los Angeles County.
But they don't own the land anymore, right?
No, they sold it for, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, $20 million.
So what good was all of that then?
Well, listen, that's part of the argument, right? But here's the thing with that. At least it was theirs to sell, right?
Yes, I understand that, but
no, I get it, Barry, and I'm not arguing with you. I get it.
Big picture, bruh.
Big picture, right. Well, I tell you what, when you talk about somebody being their own worst enemy, who is worse than Donald Trump?
No one.
Donald Trump is he has created a firestorm over the weekend himself. Apparently he got word, whether it's accurate or not, that
don't believe him.
On Tuesday, on Tuesday, he's going to be arrested and brought up on charges in New York in the whole Stormy Daniels situation. But here's the thing. Here is the architect of the insurrection calling on really another insurrection, right? He's telling people to protest and this and that. So Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg responded on Saturday. He sent an email to his staff and said, "We will not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York." He says, "Whatever happens, happens," and so still people are being subpoenaed there in New York today. They're being brought in, I should say, to testify today. Donald Trump was given the opportunity to testify and declined.
Of course.
And so his arrest in New York does, regardless of what he says, does appear imminent. But the biggest exposure he has right now criminally, and we'll get into something else later that Benny Thompson talked about to our Black publishers. But the biggest exposure criminally is what's going on in Georgia. This morning, Fannie Willis has let known that they are looking at Trump for possible racketeering and conspiracy charges there in Atlanta in connection to the 2020 election. That's serious charges.
That's fitting though, because he's a criminal. I mean, I was reading the other day. I think they said like 20 or 30 of his closest associates have been indicted or served time. Or, I mean, this dude
in Atlanta, Barrington, look no further than Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham fought that subpoena, mouthed off, and then when he finally got before that grand jury, have you heard from him again? You have not.
Nope.
Yeah, these guys, and the thing that aggravates the hell out of me is that if it was Stacey or Austin or Barrington who did what Trump has done, we'd be in some prison forgotten.
Exactly, and life would go on, and that's the thing that frustrates me. I remember, aging myself now, but when President Ford pardoned Richard Nixon in September of 1974. And I remember him ending his speech with, "Our national nightmare is over." And my attitude is Nixon should have gone to jail and Trump should go to jail. America will be fine seeing either a current or a former American president in prison. We've survived a civil war. We've survived, the civil rights movement. We have survived presidential assassinations. We survived January 6th. I have, we all have loved ones who are in prison. You love them, but life goes on. If Donald Trump goes to prison, life will go on, and it will show the world that there is some equality, at least
Nixon,
some equality in the American justice system.
Nixon should have went to prison.
Yeah.
Reagan should have went to prison.
Yeah.
And certainly now maybe another precedent will be set with Donald Trump, because these are remember, here's the important thing about what's going on the state level, because Benny Thompson, the congressman out of Mississippi, was very, very forceful in his comments on this program about Trump and the DOJ, and that it would be a travesty if the DOJ did not indict Donald Trump for his role. And then he spoke to our NMPA publishers over on Friday during the State of the Black Press address, and really repeated the same thing. He said it all came down to one man, that insurrection, that deadly insurrection. Let's not forget, officers lost their lives. But so that's a federal case. Benny Thompson is a federal case, which means that if a Republican gets into office, or if Joe Biden is in office, or a Democrat is in office, and they feel like, well, presidents shouldn't be in prison, they can pardon him. But on the state level, the president cannot issue a pardon in state crimes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I'm sure that Orange Jesus sphincter is real tight right now, because I think that Alvin Bragg is the least of his problems, because
it is. But Barrington,
it is breathing down their neck.
He's going to get indicted. Listen, Barrington, he's going to get indicted in Georgia. Fannie Willis is going to bring. But here's the issue with that. I just mentioned that a Republican president down in Georgia. There's a Republican governor, a Trump guy.
Yeah,
he has the power to pardon Donald Trump on those state charges. And make no mistake, he will. In New York, there's a Democratic governor.
Yeah,
but those charges in New York, he can conceivably get probation for those charges.
Well, I'm telling you, keep an eye on Jack Smith's investigation, because I think that investigation is getting ready to upend this whole world. And it couldn't happen to a better person. I keep on thinking that this dude is 74 years old, and in his entire life, he's never been held accountable for
anything.
Listen, when he came into office, they said that there were 2,500 lawsuits against him from small business owners and other people, where he just stiffed them and decided that he wasn't going to pay them. I mean, he's such a cruddy, dirty, low-down person. And I always keep on thinking people stupid as hell, because I wouldn't hammer a nail for Donald Trump knowing that he's not going to pay me, and that he sits down and he waits you out and then tells you, you can get pennies on the dollar for what I owe you, or nothing at all. And I'm telling you, he needs to be in a foreign country, because the type of stuff that he done here, and he walking around free, it wouldn't happen anywhere else.
And there have been, I think, last read 360, 370 of his idiot disciples who have been arrested and sentenced.
Yeah.
And there are another 600 or 700 more who are awaiting trial. And I think it's safe to say that the majority of those will go to prison, rightfully so. And Trump doesn't even talk about them.
But the problem stays, Austin. The problem is that you have 146 coup plotters who are in Congress.
Yep, absolutely.
They shouldn't be there. They should have run them out from the minute that they knew what they
were. And wait a minute, Barrington, how about the Speaker of the House? The Speaker of the House
from his government account,
attempting
from
to
his government account
in a state criminal investigation.
Yeah.
How about that?
He's
from his government account.
From his
which
government account.
Which in itself is illegal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You
But
recall when we were in the White House the other day, in Kareem's office,
but the
someone
hatchet,
asked her a political
hatchet,
question, and
Yes.
she said,
Hatch Act.
"I cannot get into politics because of
yeah,
the Hatch Act."
yeah. But for me, and I say it, you know, when I was growing up overseas, when I was growing up in Jamaica, the image that people gave us of this country was that law and order and the rule of law was immutable. That regardless of who you were, if you broke the law, did whatever, you would be held accountable. But all of this shows you that that's a bunch of bullshit, because these guys have flouted the law. They've done what they wanted. And I mean, I'm sitting down and listening to um, analysts talk about and reporters talk about the Justice Department and talking about them wringing their hands because they're saying that they can't bring charges against Orange Jesus. Does that make any sense?
Nope.
There's no law that says you can't do it.
No, there's no law that's
It's like some courtesy thing. And these idiots are talking about they don't know if they want to bring charges. What does he got to do? He got to kill somebody before they do anything?
well. Remember, he
Yeah,
famously said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not get
and
arrested.
it's true, and it's true.
And so
And
far, he's
he
proven himself to
called
be true.
for, he said if arrested, he wants his supporters to protest. He didn't say peacefully protest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Protest.
And,
And
and
look, and I don't think any of us on the show have an issue with anybody, Trump supporter, non-Trump supporter, protest. That's part of American democracy, the right to protest. But you have to do so in a non-violent, peaceful manner.
But that's
I
only
didn't have a
us.
problem with those idiots
That's us.
assembling on the mall on January 6th. I did have a problem with them, crashing through the
Areas.
offices and the
Yeah.
doors and the windows of the U.S. Capitol, and 7 or 8 police officers being killed, and over 140 individuals, including other police officers, being seriously injured or maimed, and you calling it a tourist visit,
mm,
which is what the speaker said last week.
Yeah.
hmm
But
hmm
the law, the rules of engagement are only for us, because
That's right.
regardless, they could kill all our children, they can kill our parents, they can destroy our lives, and we're not supposed to say anything, do anything. But these people, these entitled mascots, running around talking about reverse racism, and how aggrieved it is, how they're resentful of every, and all of this. This dude is masterful, because he has harnessed all of this anger and resentment and grievance, because Black people have made significant gains in this country. And
That's
if you
right.
look at American history, every time that Black people made any gains, there was a white backlash. So we're seeing the white backlash. And although he's not the one that discovered racism, invented racism, he's put the fuel on the fire.
Yeah, I'm reading what Mark Campbell writes, and I don't think anybody's concerned or worrying about Trump. It's what's currently going on. Mark Campbell, Donald Trump is the past president, but he's also currently running for president again.
Yeah.
You have to hold these people accountable, and certainly we in the Black press, as Benny Thompson made it clear. Benny Thompson said on Friday that the world did not really understand how and I'm paraphrasing him, but he used different words, but they didn't truly understand how horrible Trump was until the Black press exposed it. We are extreme. We have a responsibility, Mark Campbell, that to bring these things to the fore. We have a responsibility. If he's not running, then heck yeah, we can forget about him. He is running for president of the United States.
I don't
You
agree with that.
cannot
Yeah, and
ignore
even if
that.
I
and
don't.
The
even
mistake
states if
people
he was
made
not running,
before, the mistake people made before, when they, and you had some CBC members. Oh, we're gonna ignore him when he got elected. We're gonna ignore him. You cannot ignore this.
But
It's
Stacey,
it's it's simply it's irresponsible to ignore this.
even if he wasn't running for president,
he's still a threat.
he has done so much
Right.
to undermine institutions, to
Hmm
to
hmm
to
hmm
to undermine the fairness of the vote.
Yeah.
Basically pull together all these people who said that they are willing. I mean, if you look at the surveys of these Republicans, these so-called fringe Republicans, which are not fringe because it's mainstream, they said that they believe that if they need to maintain power, that they need to kill some people to do it.
Yeah, well, look what David Youngblood writes. All one needs to do is recall 1870 to 1900. Retrenchment was on the menu. So we just you got to make these people aware. It's like
Good morning, David. Good morning, David.
David came to the lunch. I was looking for. I couldn't find him in the luncheon, but I saw him before the luncheon, and we got. Everybody was so happy to see David Youngblood. David Youngblood was like a superstar walking through the National Press Club, like a superstar that he is.
Yeah. No, we can't ignore Trump. We can't, because here's the thing. Trump can disappear and it wouldn't make a difference.
You got DeSantis, you got Marjorie Taylor. You're right. You're right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got Matt Gaetz, you got that idiot Kevin McCarthy. You got all these people that have embraced Trumpism. Ron DeSantis, right? Abbott in Texas. All of these people have embraced it, and he could leave, and all of the poison and the toxins that he's created will continue to pour through the body politic.
And you're naming, Barrington, you just named a host of people, you and Stacey, a host of people who are known. There are a whole lot of unknowns who are just, if not more dangerous at the state and local levels of government.
Yeah. But you know, it's interesting because the Republican Party spent about $30 million some years ago to begin to put in place Republicans at the local level, school boards, running for judges, running for DAs, all of the positions that Democrats weren't paying attention to. The Democrats were paying attention to the presidency.
The big ones. Yep.
Big one, not worrying about, I mean, they ain't worried about the Supreme Court. And if we've learned nothing, we've learned that these people don't sleep.
That and so you just answered again something Mark again writes in. He said, I just feel there's more important things than him. I don't underestimate him, but he will never be president again. And that is a mistake. That is these indictments that are coming down are only going to enhance his popularity among the MAGA crowd. They already are using terms like martyr. Even the crazy speaker, even the crazy Marjorie Taylor Greene, people with power are using the word martyr. Mike Pence, who they were coming into the Capitol, one of the missions was to go in. They had a noose. They were going to use it on Mike Pence
and kill his family. His
family. And you got Mike Pence saying, give him a break. But he was going to break your neck, literally.
But the thing,
you can't ignore this. This is like black people don't go to the doctor. You can't ignore that growth coming out of your neck. You got to get it taken care of.
I agree with Mark up to a point. I think that even with these indictments, I think that Trump is in a very good position to get the nomination. I don't know that he'll necessarily get it, but I think he's in a very good position to get the nomination. But the primary is one part of the political process. The general election is a completely different ball game, and I don't know that he will. I don't know that he can win the presidency again, but I wouldn't put it past him.
75 million votes in 2020, the second highest in history. 75 million votes, and that's even with they have put in even more laws to make sure that people like him get more votes.
But the thing that I always think about Stacey and Austin is that even though they tell us that the most extreme fringes of the party, the ones who they expect to vote for him is 30%, it's a quiet white people that I'm always paying attention to, because they'll tell you publicly that they would never support Trump.
Thank you.
But the numbers are telling you that when they go behind that curtain, they're voting for him.
That's right.
Right. Well, we talked about white women, right?
White women.
Yeah.
What do they do, and what are they going to do?
The most
They've
disloyal
shown it.
voting bloc in the Democratic Party.
Yeah, yeah. So that's an issue that I think is of more concern, because if he's not taken down by the indictments and he runs, I don't think he'll win, but he gonna cause a whole lot of trouble.
Well, he is going to cause a whole lot of trouble. And look, uh, unless perceptions start to change on the other side, look, if he get whoever gets that nomination, whether it's him, if he gets that nomination, unless perceptions start to change and people start to realize what is actually happening, he just may get back into office. The state of the Black press in America in 2023 is strong, resilient, and getting stronger by the day. Those are the words of Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association. He made those comments as he did a pin drop instead of a mic drop, a pin drop at the State of the Black Press luncheon on Friday at the National Press Club. A host of our publishers from around the country attended. It was really a really good event. Reverend Mark Thompson from Make It Plain. Mark was the MC, always doing a fabulous job. As you see the podium there with the director, the board of directors, including Chair Karen Carter Richards, Jackie Hampton, Fran Farah, and others were there in attendance. It was such a outstanding state of the Black press. The luncheon was, and David said, was outstanding. The event was truly outstanding. We got to hear from Benny Thompson, who received the Global News Trailblazer Award from the NMPA, as we see him being presented it there, the 2023.
Well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved is correct. And Benny Thompson, as always, did not hold back. Benny Thompson, just in continuing the conversation about the January 6th commission that he led, I should say. He talked about the fact that, look, there was one person and one person only responsible for the deadly insurrection. And he also talked about the continued importance of the Black press. He wants the federal government and others, not just the federal government, but he made the appeal. Advertisers, Global Newsmaker of the Year is the award, but advertisers who are not looking at the Black press, what are you doing? Yeah. He made the point of politicians running for office. It's hard to win an election if you're not advertising the Black press, and we keep hearing that. We've seen it. And we're not just saying it because we are the Black press. We're just giving facts, as they say, truth to power, right? Yeah. But Benny Thompson and Dr. Chavis, whose address was more galvanizing. It's hard to say. But Dr. Chavis talked about the future of the Black press, what the Black press is going to be doing going forward. We have a new World News app, the NMPA World News app. Everybody can download it free. You got to check it out because you want Black news. The NMPA's World News app covers from here all across, all the way to China. I mean, it's got everything. And of course, the visit to the White House, Shalonda Young, the director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, and she, first Black woman to work on a presidential budget. She met with us there in the briefing room. We had publishers at the podium taking photos at the podium there. And of course, we got to do something that nobody does. Go into the office. It was a bunch of us. It was over 30 of us. Go into the office of Karine Jean-Pierre, the first Black White House press secretary. And what a treat it was. What a treat. We see some of our publishers there. There is Dr. Draper, and here is, of course, Karen Carter Richards, our chair, and Dr. Chavis, the president. But Bobby Henry from the West Side Gazette in Florida. It was quite the visit. And now Barrington came. He behaved because Mimi Machado was with him, so he behaved himself. And there's David Youngblood.
David.
There is the one and only David Youngblood. But that was that's a wonderful sight right there.
It is.
It really is. And
White House will never be the same.
it will never be the same. But I was so proud of this was a proud moment. I was proud of our publishers, of all the guests at the White House. And we're so grateful to Karine. She's always welcoming. And Erica Lowe, we can't say enough about Erica Lowe, the director of Black or African American media, I should say, for the White House. They have made that White House, and there's Miss Perry with Ron Burke and, of course, Congressman Benny Thompson. But they've made that White House so accessible. I always say when Obama was president, it became Def Jam White House, right? I mean, he made it very accessible to hip hop artists and stuff like that. But this White House,
not the journalists,
not the journalists, right? But this White House
for 3 years
makes it accessible to the Black press. More importantly, we could say to journalists, to Black journalists, but to the Black press. We appreciate the respect that they put on the NMPA's name at the White House. But before we get to Austin Barrington, I'll let you talk about your experience, because you behaved yourself because Mimi was there. But other than that,
it's not a matter of whether I behaved or not, because you don't know what I did up in there.
I saw Mimi carrying a stick.
Yeah, she was carrying a stick for you.
Oh, okay, that's why she was carrying a stick.
Yeah, no, but it was a good experience. I mean, I've been there. I've been to the White House several times. Never been with as many black people, so I liked that.
I've never seen that many Black people in the White House.
Yeah,
all you Negroes, what y'all doing here?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to the briefing rooms, it's a spot of chocolate here and a spot of chocolate there.
I mean, no, just a spot of chocolate.
Yeah.
So listen, I think it's important too. This in Austin and I had this conversation with Karine a couple of months ago. I think this is very important that you mentioned that, Barrington, because there was someone who told Austin and I that she doesn't call on Black reporters. And Karine, first of all, we didn't believe that. And I'm not saying that because she treats us so well, but we just could not believe that based on who she is, what she's had to overcome and accomplish, right? Yeah. And she set the record straight. And I hope that that individual, who's a nice person, we really enjoyed this individual who said that. I hope that individual is watching. There he is. There he is.
The great Barrington.
Wait. All of a sudden, Mimi has disappeared.
Mimi was in front of us.
Okay. Oh, okay. There. Oh, okay. There she goes.
That's the great Sam PK.
Sam PK was there just to make sure nothing went down that wasn't supposed to go down. But let me say this: Karine made it clear that she does try and call on everyone, but one thing she said that made sense. With all the hands going up, she does call on people she know, and having said that, she said everybody there is more than welcome to come up and have a one-on-one and get to know her and let her know that.
Schedule. Exactly.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
One of the the pride that I felt on Friday was the first Black newspaper I read as a kid was the Miami Times, and then the second Black newspaper I started reading was the Cleveland Calling Post, where I grew up. And then when I went to North Carolina, I used to periodically write articles for the Carolinian. So that was my first time being with so many giants like you, Stacey, and Barrington, and everybody else who was at the White House. So I just felt a tremendous sense of pride. I was also very happy to hear the props that Karine gave to Erica.
Yes.
Yes. I mean that stood out to me, and she was very. I mean, she emphasized the important role that Erica played on her team and be the liaison to the Black press, and she called her not only my colleague but my friend.
Terry Jones of the Data Weekly in New Orleans, with Erica right there. Great photos, by the way. Bobby Henry is right. We got to give Mark Mahoney, Dream in Color Photography, the
Yep.
credit. He's our NMPA official photographer, Mark Mahoney. What a great job. You're right, Austin. She did give props to Erica, and that's the other thing I always appreciated so far in these 2 years with this White House and these young ladies who have these really important positions. These all African Americans, females, they really complement each other well.
Yes,
And
yes,
they
yes.
give props. There's Mark
That's a great photo.
Mahoney,
That's a great Mark.
and that's a selfie.
Yeah.
with the big camera.
Yeah. But you know what's interesting? The Chinese, there's a Chinese proverb that says women hold up half of the world. And I think Black women hold up at least 3/4 of the world.
Most of the world, absolutely.
Absolutely. Because I'm telling you, I was doing some research the other day, and they said only 2 to 3% of all people with a master's degree, Black men, make up only 2 or 3% of holders of a master's degree. It's
really,
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's a Black women who doing the heavy lifting, bruh.
Yeah.
They're in places, they're doing things, and I mean, I'm looking
Hey,
at.
wait a minute. Greer said, "Ain't no love like a Black man's love."
That's true.
Go Greer.
But you know who Joe Biden reminds me of? The Biden White House. My man, Marion Barry. When
Kareem
Barry came into office, the amount of women that he put in senior administration positions, nobody had done that before, and probably haven't done it since.
Yeah, Karine said, and this is not the first time, it's not breaking news. I mean, we've heard this before, but Karine said, and she said, look, don't just listen to her words, but look at the facts. This White House, this presidency, this administration, Biden Harris, have done more for Black people than any administration in history. Power 96 says, I think Karine is doing a great job. If I was in her position, it would be a misunderstanding every day. I would hurt feelings every day. Now, remember, Austin, I asked her about that, right?
Yeah,
I said, you ever feel like you want to go just slap somebody? I'm not going to tell you what she said because you're going to have to watch it on the Let It Be Known podcast on YouTube. You got to subscribe to YouTube to get it. But she had some responses to that because I compared it to some, if you remember the sketch with Richard Pryor, he was at the podium.
Yeah.
And Richard Pryor was.
I'm telling you.
Jeffrey Boney.
Jeffrey, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised if she wanted to slap the out of Peter Ducey, the Fox dude.
Fox guy.
Because he's always asking her stupid questions and trying to throw out them gotcha questions. And to her credit, she doesn't back down and she makes him look like the fool that he is.
Credit, right? She doesn't go all Will Smith on us, right? She don't get
lose her cool.
Keep my name out your mouth.
Yeah.
She keeps it together. I'm not knocking Will. I'm not knocking Will. I'm not liking what he did, but I'm not knocking him. So I'm just saying.
And to do that job, as well as she does, but many before her, it requires a great intellect. It requires a certain mental capacity, a certain discipline. But to be the first Black and the first Black woman in this role, she's getting incoming racism, subtle, direct, indirect, every day. And she still had to maintain her cool because I am the voice of the most powerful man on the planet. It's kind of like what Barack Obama and Michelle Obama had to do for 8 years. That's what Karine Jean-Pierre has to do for however long she's going to be in that role.
And not just when she's at the podium, you know that, right?
Well, always,
wherever
wherever she goes,
wherever she goes, whatever. It's not a minute off, let alone a day off. She is the White House press secretary 24/7. She could be on vacation, and one slip up, they're going to jump all over it.
And that expectation, that being on the public stage, will always be with her. even when she leaves the White House. The same way it's still with the Obamas. You know, folks are still
yeah.
waiting for the Obamas, you know, 6 or 7 years after they left
Yep.
office to slip up and say, told you that it's like
It's
any, you know,
true.
like a typical black person, or whatever phrase they use.
Only Barrington knows what that's like. Barrington, what's that like?
What's like?
You know, being watched so carefully, you can't slip up.
Oh God, please. I quote every minute of every day. The only difference is that I don't care.
What? We care.
No, I don't. I'm human.
Oh, I think that we don't care.
No, I don't care. We're gonna make.
Oh yeah, you don't. You don't.
I'm gonna make mistakes and all that stuff. But I'm telling you,
And it's too late to teach him how to care too, Austin.
I was
No. We're way beyond that.
But I couldn't run for a political.
Why not? We'd have so much fun.
Between the skeletons in the closet and me.
Oh, you know the shows we would do if you were running.
Yeah, and me telling
My Lord.
First of all, if you give me money, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna be beholden to. That's gonna be a problem. So what can I say?
If Barrington ran for public office and was successful, we'd have to do a separate show, like we referenced Nightline earlier, every evening. You know, day 34, day 34.
Oh,
Barrington
God.
Simon, you know, being a member of the United States Congress.
Listen, we got to wrap. We are way over time. Look at that. We in trouble. It's Barrington's fault. I'm blaming Barrington.
It's always
over time.
Always Barrington's fault. We good.
Thanks so much. Of course, Austin and Barrington always bringing the goods. And thank you all for watching Let It Be Known. Again, subscribe to our YouTube page at Let It Be Known's YouTube page, because we got some specials, including with Corinne. We got a nice special with Corinne and others that you'll be able to see only on the Let It Be Known YouTube page. Check us out. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Take care.